Okay, cervical controlled articular rotations. Take a big deep breath in, brace through the midline, bring the neck down as far as we can, sweep the chin round to the left, following the collarbone, ear over to the left. Lift the chin as we go round to the back, trying to draw as big a circle as we can with that chin, making sure we're getting no compensation elsewhere. Ear to the right side, chin to the right shoulder, and then down and round, pass straight through for rep 2. Try and maintain 1 mile an hour as we go round, working at our end range throughout. Don't worry if you don't keep up with my tempo, if you're too fast, too slow, do it at your speed, but make sure that we're no compensation, it's just the cervical spine working. As you get to the bottom, tick-tock back in the opposite direction. Ear to shoulder, lift that chin up and around. Carry on down, pass straight through for rep 2. Final rep, keep the same tension that we started with. We should be finishing with that tension as well. Ear comes into the shoulder, chin in, down, round, and finish there. So thoracic controlled articular rotations. What we're going to do here is take our feet wider than a normal stance. Okay, this is just going to limit our hip movement as much as possible. Remember, we're trying to move the thoracic spine on a perfectly still pelvis. Grab the arms, give yourself a hug and squeeze, and then we're going to, from there, brace through our midline and pull ourselves down, trying to flex our thoracic spine. That's the spine around the rib cage as far forward as we can. Then we're going to twist to the left as if I'm trying to turn and face towards the left. Make sure that right hip doesn't come with us. Lean to the left. We'll grow as we come round the back. Keep the chin pinned to the chest. Make sure it's the shoulders or the thoracic spine doing the movement. Right shoulder comes over. Then we rotate to face to the right. Make sure the left hip doesn't come along for the ride. And then down and round to the front. Pass through for rep 2. Trying to increase the amount of joints moving in this motion. Drawing that as big a circle as we can. Staying right on our end range. Start to get down to the bottom here. As we get to the middle, we're going to tick-tock back in the opposite direction. Keep those legs tight. Make sure the hips aren't moving. No swaying backwards and forwards, side to side. 1 mile an hour, remember. Keep the tension on. Same tension we started with. Passing through for the final rep. Leaning over to the left, and then down and round to finish. Scapular controlled articular rotations. We're going to keep the arms by the side. If we imagine, if you've got a seam on your trousers or your shorts, or you imagine that you have one, we're going to place the middle finger onto that seam, and it should remain on there the whole time. From there, we're going to take a big deep breath in, brace through the midline, raise the shoulder blades up towards the ears, and then retract the shoulder blades back. Try and pinch together. Imagine the shoulder blade moving freely over the top of the rib cage. Don't flare the rib cage, drive down, like you're trying to tuck the bottom of your shoulder blades into your pockets. And then forward as far as you can. Start to link back up as we come up to the top. That middle finger should still be on that seam. Good, retracting back, moving 1 mile an hour. Keep that same tension applied. Squeeze down. And then forward, coming back up to the ears. And then change direction. We go forward again, down, retract, over the top for the final rep, forwards, down, retract, and finish at the top. Shoulder controlled articular rotations. I'm doing this in a tall kneeling position, but equally you could do this in a seated or a standing position, whatever you prefer. We're going to brace through the midline, squeeze the left fist, and then with the right arm, we're going to externally rotate as we come across the midline of the body, as far as you can without compensation through the spine or the scapula. Keep traveling upwards. As you get up, we're going to start to internally rotate, so turn the thumbs in, and then move away and back. I'm continuing to turn my arm like I'm wringing a towel out, as well as pulling round towards the rear, being careful to make sure that my spine and my torso doesn't rotate. As I get down towards the hip, the palm of my hand should be facing away, and then I'm going to tick-tock back in the other direction and do the reverse. I'm going to keep raising up until I hit a block, then I'm going to start to unload that rotation and come back up towards the ear. Continue that external rotation as I come across the midline, back down to the hip, and then straight into rep 2. Same process, we externally rotate across the midline, up towards the ear, internally rotate and away. Make sure I'm wringing that towel out, pulling round towards the rear, knuckles towards the hip, tick-tock back, up and over. Continue that external rotation as I come across the midline and finish there. Straight onto the other side. So squeeze the right fist, brace the midline, left arm externally rotates and comes across the body, up towards the ear, internally rotate and away. Trying to draw a bigger circle as I can. So I come round, knuckles towards the hip, and then reverse as far back as possible. In and across. Good. Last rep. Externally rotate, come across that midline, up towards the ear, turn away. Round towards the rear, knuckles to the hip, and reverse. Keep that same tension applied that we started with. Across the midline, externally rotate, and finish by the hip. Elbow controlled articular rotations. Focus here is keeping the arms pressed against the side. There should be no movement in the upper arm or shoulder at all. Everything should be happening from the elbow down. If it makes it easier for you, you can place a tennis ball, a book, a towel under each arm to keep that position nice and tight. And what we're going to do is supinate or turn our thumbs out as far as we can. Keeping that rotation on, I want you to flex your elbow until you come as high up and into a tight bicep curl position. We're going to pronate the hands or turn the thumbs in as far as you can, but without using the upper arm, and then extend at the elbow, turn back out, flex up, keep that turn on, turn in, extend down. Staying in now, come back up into flexion, turn out, come down. One more time through, turn in, flex, turn out, down. Wrist-controlled articular rotations. What we're going to do is raise the arms up parallel to the ground. I want you to imagine that you've got your phone resting on your forearm. The forearm needs to stay perfectly still. If we rotate at all, we'll drop the phone. Okay? So, from this position here, you can do it in an open hand or a closed fist, whatever you prefer. I'm going to stay open hand for today. From there, keeping those forearms completely still, we're going to bring our little pinkies in together, and then we're going to try and draw a bigger circle as we can with our middle finger or index finger. Okay, coming round, remember to keep that tension throughout the body. Draw as big a circle as you can as you come round and over at the top. Remember to flex, try and keep the fingers straight. Most people will try to bend their fingers here for the first time they try it. As you get to the middle, just pass straight back through for rep 2. Nice and wide, working right on the end of our range of motion at that wrist. As we come back through to the middle here, we're just going to tick-tock back in the opposite direction. Moving again at 1 mile an hour, nice and smooth. Should try to avoid any jerky motions here. If we need to, just create a little bit more tension and slow the movement down to avoid those little gaps and those little jumps as we move through. As you get back to the middle, rest there. Hip-controlled articular rotations. I'm going to do this from a quadrupedal position. If you want to do this standing, you know how to do that, by all means. If we're doing it from the quadrupedal position, on all fours, what we're going to do is brace through that midline, squeeze the hands and the knees into the floor. On the right knee, we're going to go light and lift up, bring up towards the elbow, as far as we can without changing our spinal position. From there, knee raises to the side. Again, we don't want any pelvis movement, any spinal movement. Internally rotate the knee, lift the heel, come round to the back. Thinking the thigh bone moving in a perfectly still pelvis. As we come round towards the rear and the knees meet, we just kick back up and we do the reverse for the other half of the motion. Good, finishing towards the elbow and back together and straight into rep 2. Remember to lift as high as we can, working right on that end range, but without any compensation elsewhere in the body. Knees together, and then kicking back up for rep 2, or for the second half of rep 2. Straight into the left side then, brace, push the hands into the floor, right knee's pushing down, left knee goes light and comes up towards the elbow. Remember to keep the hip completely still as we start to raise to the side. Once you hit your end range, internally rotate, lift the heel, round to the back, knee comes through, together, and then reverse. High as we can without changing that hip position, that spine position. Knee comes to the side, externally rotate, squeeze in, making sure we're not leaning away, in towards the elbow, together, so straight into rep 2. Nice and high. Round, and then reverse. Nice and steady. 1 mile an hour, tension applied. And finish there. Knee controlled articular rotations. In a seated position, left leg long, bend the right leg, and we're going to place the right arm underneath the belly of the muscle. Try to stay away from the knee joint itself. Hug the knee in tight and create some tension. Brace through that midline, and then what we're going to do from here is externally rotate that tibia as far out as we can. We're going to kick up, keeping that rotation on to about 50 to 60% of our maximum, and then we're going to internally rotate the tib as far as we can without any compensation through the knee or the ankles, and then come down. Good. Turn out, external rotation, kick up, internal rotation, come down. Staying internally rotated this time, kick up, external rotation, come down. One more time, internal rotation, kick up, external rotation, come down. Good. Straighten the right leg, bend the left leg. Same thing again, behind the belly of the muscle, away from the knee joint. Brace through that midline, big deep breath in, externally rotate, kick up, internally rotate, come down, external rotation, kick up, internal rotation, come down. As we get to the bottom, stay internally rotated, kick straight back up, external rotation, come down. One last time through, internal rotation, kick up, external rotation, come down. So, controlled articular rotations for the ankle. We're going to do, again, like the knees, we're going to hug, but you can come up a little bit higher this time, behind the leg, grab the opposite arm, and then with that hand of the opposite arm, place on top of the knee, just so we can block and minimise any compensation through the upper part of the thigh. What we're trying to do here is everything from the ankle up to the hip stays perfectly still. Create that tension by bracing through the midline on a big inhale, and then we're going to start to draw as big a circle as we can with the foot, making sure that we minimise movement everywhere else. No tibial rotation here, moving at 1 mile an hour, keeping that tension applied. As you get to the bottom, just pass straight through. If you're struggling to minimise movement through the shin bone, just make a smaller circle and apply a little bit more tension. Once you get to the bottom of the second rep, just change direction, 2 in the opposite way. Nice and smooth and even as we go round. Try to minimise any of the jerky movement, just create a little bit more tension, coming round towards the end of the second rep, and rest there. Switch it straight over to the other side. So left arm comes underneath the left leg, grabs the right arm, right hand onto the right and to the left knee, pull in, brace through the midline, and then start that first rotation, moving inside, over the top, over to the outside. No tibial rotation here, so no movement through that shin bone, down or through for rep 2. Keep an eye on that shin bone, making sure it's not moving. As you get to the bottom of the second rep, just change direction, nice and smooth with the action. Don't worry if you're not keeping up with me. Move at 1 mile an hour for you. Keep it as smooth as possible. Create more tension if you need to try and increase control. Coming down towards the bottom and rest there. Controlled articular rotations for the toes then. So what we're going to do from a seated position, we're going to slide our feet out until you feel like the ball of your foot wants to start to lift off. And then we're going to come back about 10 to 15% from there. From that position, big breath in, brace, keeping 4 outside toes down, lift the big toe. high as you can, and rest. Good, that's 1. 2 more reps. 4 toes down, big toe up. Good, and rest. 4 toes down, big toe up. Good, and rest. Right, this time, 4 toes up, big toe down, making sure we don't collapse inwards on our arches. So, 4 toes up, big toe down, and rest. 4 toes up, big toe down. Last one. 4 toes up, big toe down, and rest. Good, next one. All 5 toes up, big toe down, and up. Good, all toes up, big toe down, and up. All toes up, big toe down, and up. Last one. All 5 toes up, starting with the outside of the little toe. Place it down, then the next toe, then the next toe, then the next toe until the big toe touches. And rest. Repeat. So up, first toe, second toe, and so on, all the way through to the big toe comes down. Last time. All 5 up, start on the outside, push down till the last toe comes on. Segmental cat-cows. So we're going to be going back to our quadrupedal position here. And remember, we're trying to move the spine one piece at a time. Imagine if you was picking a pearl necklace up off the table, slowly, how that would look. That's how we're trying to move the spine through this. So, into our position. Wrists should be underneath shoulders, knees underneath hips. Create your tension, brace through that midline, and then starting from our tail, pull hips underneath and work your way up the spine one piece at a time. Keep that movement going. Upper back should be staying still until you get to that area. Chin should be the last thing to come in. Staying in this position with the chin tucked and pushed up. We start back at the bottom, moving into the opposite direction. And again, piece by piece. Working all the way through until we end up in our cow position. What I'd like you to do is spend 2 to 3 minutes practicing that technique, backwards and forwards, work tail to head, head to tail, as you feel is necessary.